to help you in every area of your life, especially your business. And I'm so super excited for our guest today. I can't even hold this in. Her new book is being released today. So we are so lucky to
Yes.
be able to have her on the show. And our guest today is Karen McGregor, and we're going to talk about how to be more influential, how to make your ideas spread, how to make a bigger impact in the world. And when I first met Karen, and this is a big part of what she does, she's the founder of the Speaker Success Formula, which is a training company that's trained thousands of people all over the world on powerful speaking skills. She speaks from experience. She's got a TEDx video that's fabulous. You guys go out and find it. Karen McGregor will give you her contact information to find it. She's had over 1 million views, which is no easy thing because there's lots of TED competition out there. She's been on stages with Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra. And so she knows really what she's speaking from experience. And Karen, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here, especially on this auspicious day for you.
Well, thank you, Ellen. And I have a copy of my book right here. It's so exciting. It's my third book, but it never gets old. You know, that day of the launch is still a beauty. And here we are talking to your beautiful community of financial advisors. So I'm really hoping to be able to support you all today with a different angle and look at influence and how we can influence in a positive way to make greater change on the planet.
Yeah, so I have to interrupt before we launch into all your amazing content. I forgot to mention the name of your book, which is pretty important because I want you guys all out there on Amazon or on Karen's website getting this. It's the Tao of Influence. I love this. Subtitle, Ancient Wisdom for Modern Leaders and Entrepreneurs. And what I love about your work so much, Karen, is that you take this very grounded, practical systems and strategies, but help your audience and your readers and your followers look at what the inside job on that is. So let's just dig right in. Can you share with us about the 4 pillars of influence?
Absolutely. So right before I share that, just wanted to give you a context that when I work with speakers, many speakers and financial advisors, who speak or who share your message as well, there's usually something, if we're not reaching the goals that we've set, or we haven't really reached that level of expanded influence that we want, there's usually something getting in the way. And that something was something that I did not address for many years. So I would teach people everything they needed to know, but then either they wouldn't use it or they just wouldn't do the things that they needed to do at the time they needed to do it, and procrastinate, and a lot of drama around the whole movement towards where they wanted to go. So that was partly why I created the Tao of Influence as well, is how can we experience a challenge but not be overcome by it? How can we do what needs to be done without creating a huge amount of stress? Does that make sense, Ellen?
100%. And it's not just the stress of like your audience that were coming to you, or in that part of what you were talking about for your speaking training. But I imagine these are principles that happen in every area, right? So there's stress. I think the whole planet is in stress now, but for advisors, they're dealing with the stress of what their clients are dealing with. They may live in a part of the country that's under climate things right now. There's fires, there's hurricanes coming, there's major
Yes.
things. Or they may be at home with kids and trying to work and manage their teams. There's a lot of issues that are up for people. And so I would imagine those internal things you're talking about are not just in how we are in our public persona.
Yes, and what I love what you've said is we do have to acknowledge both what's happening in our outer world, but also what's happening in our inner world. because these are unprecedented times. And for most of us, we've never been in so much uncertainty. So it is important to, I believe, to become the person that then influences those other people that are your clients. As financial advisors, you know, money is probably one of the most sensitive subjects on the planet. And so becoming that person on the inside that is able to then take what you've become and influence people on the outside is really what I think is the ultimate. And so in the four pillars that you asked about, Ellen, the first one is the most important because the other three wouldn't really be fully developed without it, is the pillar of power. So how we navigate power in our lives, with our clients, with colleagues, with our family. And it all starts, of course, when we're very young. And when we try to get our needs met when we're extremely young, we're just full of love, and we're full of joy, we're full of love, we're full of exuberance, and we just want to get our needs met, and we get them met in pretty simple ways. But as we get older, those needs become more complex, and then suddenly we make up that people don't want to help us get our needs met, and we end up thinking, start to think, okay, if this person or these people are not going to help me feel good or not help me have my needs met, then I'm going to choose to have those needs met in other ways. So this is where all of our power patterns originate from. And when I say power patterns, it's where we choose to distort the natural love power that we have. So instead of having an open heart and calm and happy and fulfilled, suddenly we distort it and we become one of what I call 8 power patterns. So as an example, someone who controls a lot, you know, that person probably, and this is, you know, for me, very significant in my life too, is if you have the tendency to control a lot, it's probably because as a child, you did not feel safe. You perhaps had people around you that did things that were not predictable. The environment was maybe not as secure as you would have liked it as a child. And so you made up your mind as a young child that you were going to create your own reality, which is a wonderful thing for entrepreneurs like financial advisors, to create your own reality. But if you're creating your own reality as resistance to what is happening, then you can create that control, that power pattern of control. So that's one example. There's many in my book that I talk about. But if we don't deal with these things, what ends up happening is that when we get to a pandemic, when we get to something like this that we've never experienced before, all of our old power patterns start to creep up. So for some of us, we back away and we say, I don't want to be part of this world. I'm just going to be in my little corner, do my little thing, and that's it. And others of us are, you know, we launch into victimhood. And that could be just with our family, maybe not with our clients, but it could be that we complain every day to our family or to our friends. And so to watch ourselves and the dynamic is so important, because as influencers, everything that comes out of our mouth, everything that we think, all the ways in which we are every day matter. I always say that we spend far too much time thinking, what am I going to do with my life? And not enough time thinking, who am I being while I'm doing all this stuff? Does that make
So
sense?
is it, yeah, totally. So
Yeah.
with your 8 power patterns, is it,
Mm.
do you find that people identify pretty easily once they read the descriptions of the power patterns? Like, oh, yeah, that's my default. When I get stressed or things feel challenged, I go into control, or maybe I'm just always controlling, or whatever the other ones are. Or do you feel like sometimes people are a little bit more confused, and I don't know if that's a self-awareness thing, but and then are there like suggestions about, okay, if I'm being too controlling in your example, like how can is it just knowing that, oh, like I don't want to be like that, or are there techniques to
Yeah,
address
exactly. So what I do is I take the philosophy and the principles of the Tao Te Ching, which is a 4,000-year-old wisdom text. It's actually considered by scholars, one of the wisest books ever written. It's very short, 81 verses. You can read it quickly. But it's like poetry. It's dense. And so what I've done is I've taken the principles and I have created step by step ways in which to begin to dismantle those distorted power patterns so that we can show up fully. And so, Ellen, you asked me about the other three pillars to influence. So I just want all of our listeners to understand that if your power, and for most of us it is, by the way, unless you're the Dalai Lama, most of us have some distorted power. And that can show up in many, many ways. Other ways are blame, the judge, being the special one. You're removed from everyone. You somehow have that specialness, right? And we can see that in different work environments as well. And so whatever it is that you have as your power pattern, not only do you see it for what it is, and once you read it in my book, you'll say, oh, okay, yes, I see that. As an example, a need to be right. The need to be right is very much prevalent in a controller, but it can also be very prevalent in a victim, that need to be right and how that plays out in your life. So I talk about the 10 ego needs, I talk about the 8 power patterns, and then I give people ways. Okay, how do we dismantle the mind's power patterns? Because we all have them, some to a greater degree than others. But the more that we work on that and practice that, the more that we're able to take a situation like the pandemic and actually live through it with grace, confidence, joy, happiness, and peace. And people say, well, that's impossible. But actually, if you look at some of the people who've mastered their mind, and I'm not talking about, mindset as much as I'm talking about really mastering our thoughts to see it for what it is, but then to be able to release it. And there are different ways in which to do that. And so I think going from the first pillar to the second, which is presence, is huge to be able to move from one to the other. But Ellen, I think for those people listening, if you really want to be present and you're finding yourself stressed and it feels like you just aren't with the people that are in your house or perhaps in your community, they can feel that, and they can't. It's very difficult to help people and support people and create change on the planet if we ourselves cannot be present to them or to anyone else. So that's why I say get your power patterns figured out first, and the nature of the mind, understanding the nature of the mind and using your understanding in practical ways. Then moving into presence is much easier, because people say, well, I'm only present when I meditate. And that's not very helpful to the rest of the world. So it's important. Get those power patterns, but also, get into an environment in which it's easier to be present. So I was saying, I'm just actually doing a TV interview tomorrow, and I've done a couple TV interviews on this topic. It seems to be a popular topic about how to create calm in your home. And so if you want to be present, just look around you, look around your environment. Is this an environment that you believe is easy to be present in? Why are we making it so hard on ourselves? There needs to be certain maybe boundaries, certain things put away, perhaps things that come out like music, salt lamps, prayer beads, whatever it is that you find creates that inner calm. But without the mind, without learning those power patterns, we can create all the calm we want in our environment, but it isn't going to change anything because the inner environment is chaotic.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And the being present. Also, my experience as a longtime meditator is the more present I am, the calmer people in my home are around me. That
So
it spreads to them, and I don't know if it's because I'm not stirring the pot, or if there's like an energetic way that they're just feeling when the waters are more still in my mind.
yes. So sorry, I just had your wonderful guy there tell me that I've got a little bit of a problem here with my hair. So I'm going to do this because I couldn't listen to both of you at the same time. I know that's a magic trick of some people, but I haven't been able to master it yet. So can you repeat that, Ellen,
Yeah. No, so what
please?
I was saying was, when you're talking about presence, I was thinking about a couple things about us being present. And what I had said was, when the more calm I am, I know that it spreads to everyone around me. So there's what I heard you say is there's the physical environment that can make us feel calm, which I know when there's a lot of clutter around, that for me, that feels less calming. For my husband, it's even more distressing than it is for me. But also, I've been a long time meditator, and I know that the more calm I am, it like the waters are more still in our home.
Yes,
So, has
yes.
that been your experience as well?
Well, and that's really, when I talk about my book, The Tao of Influence, that's the number one thing that I say is influence. A lot of people think influence is an extraction, like we're trying to change something by extracting it. But real influence is actually who we are being inside. And so, Ellen, the greatest thing that you and all of the listeners can do is absolutely create your inner calm, because that will absolutely impact everyone around you. And it's amazing to see even people who are quite hyper or quite chaotic, when they have even one person around them that reminds them of the calm, their brains start to synchronize, not fully, but at least partly. And it's a very interesting impact that we can all have when we ourselves are calm.
Um, yeah. And things just work better. My husband left for out of town today, and my son, who's been working like crazy, he's like, "You guys didn't even tell me dad was leaving." And my husband, I looked, I was like, "Was that because he's been working so much, or we haven't been present, that we haven't shared it with him?" It's not like we live in this gigantic house that we would not cross paths that way. But my other experience with that, and then, I absolutely want to make sure we get to your other two pillars, is that things, when I am less present, things take so much longer because, like, I forgot, did I wash my hair today? Did I, everything is when my mind is on, which most of the time it is, but when it's really on other things that are happening in the present moment, everything becomes so much less efficient.
Yes. And I always say, we can take all the productivity training in the world, but the greatest productivity training is really handling, again, those power patterns to allow us to be present. Because when we're gripped with fear of the future or concern about the past, which is almost always for most people, if we really start to watch our minds, the mind will, even if you think you're in the present, the mind will often grab onto something like, oh, this is such a comfortable chair, and then immediately start thinking about other times when you had a comfortable chair, or maybe an uncomfortable chair. Oh gosh, my butt was so sore that time. I'm just making fun, but that's how the mind works. We are constantly making associations with everyone and everything. So, again, learning to dismantle that and be fully present, it's very difficult to say. That's why I always say on TV, it is difficult to make a quick fix solution for presence because there are steps involved in order to get there. It's not just like, well, Ellen, why don't you just be more present with your family? Well, that will last about 3 minutes,
Or
right?
3 seconds, right? The
Or
way
yeah,
our
three
mind.
seconds, yeah.
Good. So
Yeah,
share with us the other two pillars, Karen.
absolutely. So the third pillar is purpose. And I think for anyone who is an influencer, and when I say influencer, I mean someone who creates real change for others, for the planet, for their community, both in what they do and by who they are, right? And so with purpose, a lot of people say, well, right now with all the things that are going on in the world, do I really know what my purpose is? And so I talk about how to get really clear on your purpose to do in the world, the actions to take, the perhaps the goals that you want to set. However, I also talk a lot about the higher level purpose, which is our purpose to love. And so if we're a dishwasher, at a restaurant, I always say that person has more of a chance of being an influencer and impacting the people around them if they do it with love and joy and laughter versus a CEO of a company who's acting like an ass and everybody's afraid of him or her, or is doesn't even want to be part of the company because of the hangups and the power patterns that this person has. So we influence is not a title. It really does come from the purpose, the greater purpose that we are here to love each other. We're here to love the planet. And if we forget that, then our titles, our identities become so important because that's what we think it makes us who we are. And I think my next book, Ellen, is going to be called Identity because I dent itchy.
So what I love about that description of purpose, it takes some, I think sometimes people feel so much pressure, like, I don't know what my purpose is. I know I'm supposed to have a purpose. But when you make it as expansive and also as simple as to love, like we can all say, well, I can do that. It doesn't have to be specifically my purpose is to impact a million people through my books or whatever someone says their purpose is. It's so foundational that we can all really get behind that. And I just think also feel what an incredible impact that would have.
Yes, yeah, and Mother Teresa. I remember reading a long time ago. Bless her heart. She had a very influential, wealthy businessman come to her, and he was really struck by who she was and what she was doing in the world. And he said, I just want you to tell me how can I create a great big global impact. I want to do something big. And she said, "Do you know your neighbor?" And he said, "Well, what do you mean?" "Well, do you know your neighbor? Let's start there." And it always brings tears to my eyes, because getting all choked up. But we forget how these beautiful, small, daily pieces of love that we emanate from ourselves can affect so many people. And so part of us, it is, we want a deeper purpose to do, to act, to create an impact. And I'm all about that with my systems and structures that I teach people. But without the deeper understanding that love always must lead that, otherwise we get into big trouble.
Yeah, I was reading a quote today from Herb Kelleher of who founded Southwest Airlines. And I wish I had it in front of me. I didn't know we were going to be talking about this, but that's what he was really saying, is that when you love your customers and your team, that's what's going to make someone successful. So it was that underlying premise that is an amazing way to be in the world and connect with others. That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and our fourth pillar, so sorry, going back to purpose, one thing that as leaders we need to do more often, and I think right now it's difficult to do, but it's definitely necessary to do, is to help others with their purpose. So sometimes, um, we can see it. We can see something in someone, and it's just so obvious. They might be in the complete wrong job, or they might be, in the right job, but maybe not reaching their potential because they haven't really found something inside of them. And so often we let that slip. We don't really support people to see the greatest version of themselves, and to see that, you know what, maybe your purpose is a little bit off. Let's come back and see. Let's go to alignment here. When I interviewed Matthew Knowles, he's Beyonce's father, I didn't do many interviews, but he's one of them in the Dial of Influence that, he really struck me. He said, Karen, I'm never afraid to fire someone when I know that it's clear that what they're doing in my company, the role, is not their purpose. And I thought to myself, what a different and beautiful way of looking at our roles at work. If someone is not happy, it's not their purpose, they're doing it for the money, they're afraid to survive or whatever, we really have to have a conversation with them. Is this really what you want? And if not, where might you be better suited, and what can we do about it? So maybe it's not firing, but it might be, let's try and find this person a different role, or if they need to be let go, you help them to discover what is it that's their next step. So I think we have to take care of each other, because this is a time where people do deeply need to feel a sense of purpose.
Great. Okay, let's get to number 4 so we don't leave like with a cliffhanger. Like I've got the 3 of them, but what's number 4?
Okay, really quickly. Number 4 is potential. So when you have the other 3, we've worked on, the power patterns, we've worked on being present, we support each other and ourselves to tap into those deeper levels of purpose. Then we can go to what I call a different level of mastery, a different level of potential. And so that's where we really we move from the me to the we. We move to things like starting or creating or being part of a big movement, big human designed to support humanity, big projects, or it could be that you master as a financial advisor, for example, you master it so well, you take it to a completely different level, that people are just really inspired by you. Maybe there's young up and coming financial advisors who want and need, what you have to offer. And so the whole thing is, potential is divine. So people say to me, "Oh, I don't want to be perfect. No, perfection is not for me." And I always say, well, what if you could take fear out of the word perfection? Because perfection without fear around being good enough is actually a very divine thing. To be as good as we possibly can be in one area, not for our ego, not to attain, not to extract from the earth or different people, but it is a level of coming in touch with our divinity, so to speak. So you look at a beautiful piece of art like Michelangelo's The David. People cry when they see the David. Why? because it is as close as you can get to perfection. And people respond to that because we are built that way. So never be afraid to, aim really high and to do good things on the planet.
So beautiful. Great. So, Karen, I know we want people to, because it's an amazing book, to go get the Tao of Influence. And I know you have a special offer. Tell us a little bit about if they're getting the book, which they should, for no other reason
Absolutely.
that they're going to learn, but there's like a special thing that they'll have, right? That you're
Yes.
offering.
So that's right. So there's two ways to get the book. The first is if you are anywhere in the world, it's easy to get it on Amazon. And then you email us the receipt, and you'll get an awesome gifts, which I'm about to tell you about. And the second way is just to go to my website, KarenMcGregor.com, click on the book. It'll also allow you to purchase the book direct through my website, and then you will automatically get the gifts. So either way, it doesn't matter to me whichever way you choose to. If you choose to purchase through Amazon, the email is info@KarenMcGregor.com. So info@KarenMcGregor.com. Oh, I see it's on the screen. Yeah. So you can just let us know, and you will actually be part of a full day writer's retreat if you like to write, or if you want to gift it to someone. The value is $500, and it's a day to share with people the writing journey, the creation of a book. What does it take to not only create but market it, to find a publisher, agent. I'm going to have my own publisher and agent on the line to talk to people and to answer their questions. We'll be talking about story, the power of story, self-publishing if you choose to do that, and also traditional publishing. So it's a really great informative day. And you get that completely free with the purchase of a book. I also have more in-depth training with the purchase of 1 or 3 copies to do with the nature of the mind and dismantling those power patterns. So those are also going to be gifts of yours when you purchase the Tao of Influence.
Fabulous. And I know many of you out there are either aspiring authors or you're partway through your book, and Karen's an amazing teacher. So please take her up on that. And thank you, Karen. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And again, on such a big day, I'm so honored to have you on the show with us. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yay.
Ellen.
Book release
Grateful.
day.
And
Yeah.
thanks everybody for tuning in.
And for all of you out there, thank you for listening and being part of this community. I'm super excited, and really, Karen's paved the way for this. We have a webinar this week, a complimentary webinar on Thursday about finding your superpower, your unique edge. And it's really a lot about what Karen was talking about in terms of kind of some purpose things or presence, and how you set yourself apart from the competition in a truly authentic way. So I'm really excited to share this with you. The link is on the bottom of the screen, but if you go to news.horsesmouth.com/superpower, you can register there. It's going to be awesome. So I hope you'll join us there. And for all of you out there, I just really want to say, how big of a positive impact are you willing to make? How big is your influence going to be? And I hope you're taking all these tools that Karen taught us and you're going to expand on them. And remember, be great and create great every